YouTube, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Yesterday, I shared a chart on Zcash. Now, first off, this is a coin that's gone down ever since I've been in crypto. Like every single week, every single month. I don't even remember too many days where I've seen Zcash move up. During alt seasons in the past, there are periods of time where every single altcoin can move up. Zcash did not even have a sustained run during those time periods. So it's always been a coin that I haven't been paying attention to, that I've never been that attracted to. And even though I do think privacy is valuable and privacy coins are pretty interesting versus Bitcoin, it just hasn't been something that I wanted to trade. Now that did change in the past couple days, and it's why I shared this chart of Zcash yesterday. When I shared this to Twitter, I said for the first time, maybe ever, I'm bullish on Zcash. I'll explain the chart in a second. But after I shared that, there's a couple really sharp investors that gave their opinion, gave me a little bit more background on the fundamentals and the macro backdrop as well, which makes me like the trade even more. I'm going to break all that down, but first, and I want to say this for every single video I do like this, I'm trying all types of content, right? I obviously have the podcast on this channel. Hope you guys listen. Links right down below. We've covered news in the past. I've covered my view on Bitcoin yesterday, why I thought we'd move up. We are moving up today, so I hope you enjoyed that trade. But I want to cover more opportunities like this and things that I share to Twitter. I'm going to be breaking down the Zcash chart, what those other investors said, why I think it's bullish. But the first thing I have to say before we do any of that, and I'm going to say this on basically every single video where I talk about trades. This is not financial advice. Most people would be better off just investing in Bitcoin. But since I do trade, this is what I spend a ton of time doing, and it seems like you guys like this. Drop a comment down below if you want me to cover more of these trading opportunities, more of these chart breakdowns, or if not, what kind of content you guys want. But for right now, let's get to the Zcash trade, why I think it's going to move up, what the chart looks like, and what those other investors said. All right, so here is the Zcash chart in all of its glory. You can see that consistent downtrend that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Since 2017, I guess there was a brief period where in 2017 and then for about 1 month in 2018 where we actually did see price rising versus Bitcoin. And once again, I use the Bitcoin chart for all these altcoins. I'm always deciding if I want to be in an altcoin based on how they're performing versus Bitcoin. It's not because I'm a maximalist. It's basically if an altcoin is not outperforming Bitcoin, I'd rather just be in Bitcoin, right? So that kind of determines if I even want to buy an alt at all. And if an altcoin is, like Ethereum has had its runs, dozens of other tokens, DeFi coins right now have been flying versus Bitcoin, Zcash has basically never had its moment like that. Largely maybe due to its inflation, but we'll get to the fundamentals in a moment. The chart has looked like this. You guys get the general trend, lower highs and lower lows every single month, right? Consistently getting these lower highs and lower lows, never even really having a spike or a pop. I mean, coins like Dogecoin have had more pops than Zcash has. And it's a little bit confusing because Zcash is on Binance, it's on Gemini now, right? It's on all the largest exchanges. It's always been a coin that's had tons of attention. It's in the privacy sector, a group of coins that have done very well and have amassed market caps more than $1 billion. It just really never made sense to me, right? It's one of those coins where, and I'm sure you guys have trades or stocks you might play like this, where it just almost seems impossible to make money on it, right? So instead of trying to fight the trend, I've basically just ignored it and said, look, if it's going to move down, I probably don't want to buy it, all right? I'd rather just be in Bitcoin. Over the past month or so, as Zcash has actually turned around, right, it started to do this. We've had our first little pop. Now, in January, beginning of January 2020, so kind of the earlier part of this year, right, it's hard to determine whether or not that was just another small bump where price rose slightly, right, like back here in 2017 or back here in 2018, or if that was actually the start of something new. Right, so I still wasn't paying too much attention to it, but it changed yesterday because we've now started to complete what looks like a double bottom formation. Some people call this an A&E. Really, I like to keep things very simple. You can see this level right here, previous support. When we break down from that level, as it's retested, right, it's an area where now sellers are stepping in and that area becomes resistance. So if you're familiar with this, right, pretty simple concept, an area that is resistance, if price can break out of that level, right, it means sellers are no longer defending that level and you look for momentum to carry higher, right? Basically meaning if buyers can break through that level, buyers are in control of that market and the price should move up. So that breakout got my attention, right? But still, that's not really enough for me to want to take a trade, just one breakout. However, with altcoins actually doing quite well right now. We have DeFi coins that are moving up multiples. You have things like ETH, which have outperformed Bitcoin this year. You have basically every single major alt which has outperformed Bitcoin this year. And there's a fundamental backdrop. Once again, I'm going to get to it. But all those things in combination actually do make me really want to pay attention to this breakout. So we have this breakout that happened over the weekend, right? And this is how I view the chart pattern now. If this is the breakout, right, and this is now where I'm bullish from, where do I think this thing can move? Right? What kind of gains would I expect, or where do I think the next resistance is where the chart starts to get a little bit less attractive? If I'm looking at Zcash here, I think the first resistance that stands out to me, this is where we've seen previous selling pressure in the past. You can see price moves up, wicks into it, or areas where sellers stepped in and price couldn't advance any further, and then the closes happened and price moves lower. Right? So that right there is our first resistance, and that area is about, yesterday when I mentioned it on Twitter, right, that was about 35 to 40% higher. Now it's only about 20 to 25% higher. So we are moving higher. Right? This thing's already moved about 10 or 15% from when I tweeted it yesterday. Right? So already a nice start to the trade, but I think there's still a lot of room to go. If I'm looking at the next resistance that I think has a lot of confluence, or that I think would be a real challenge for price to get through, I'm looking up here, and that's basically in the 0.016 area. So that's almost 90 or 100% above the current price. So looking for a full 2x. This area was previously support. You can see it acts as support not once, but twice, 3 times. As we break down from that level, it immediately flips to resistance. So I'm expecting sellers to defend those 2 levels. And as I'm watching price move up, right, I'm trading these things. So it's not something I'm buying Zcash because I think it's going to outperform Bitcoin forever. I'm not buying Zcash because I think it's the next Bitcoin. I'm buying Zcash hopefully to make more Bitcoin. Right? It's a trade where I'm looking to make money and then get out. So those are the 2 areas that I'm looking to target for Zcash. And on a technical level, that's how I'm setting my trade up. I want to see Zcash outperform for another 20 to 25%, move up here, that'd be take profit 1. And if we can get even higher, something like 99 or 100% up here at 0.016, that'd be another area I'm looking to take profit. Obviously, if it goes higher, I can keep something small, or I can move out completely. Right? So looking at a nice 25 to 100% gain, I like that type of move. For the downside, right, I don't just want to hold this thing if the trade fails. So if price can stay above here, it makes my job really easy. This area, once again, going back to the original part of the trade, if this area was previously resistance, now I want to see that area act as support. So the buyers that push us through this current level, right, if they were strong enough to get us through this level, I now want to see them step in and defend this level. So as long as daily high time frame I like to use because I move on slower time periods, right, I expect my trades to last for several days, maybe even a week or a month, as long as prices continue to close above this area. The same way when a resistance forms, right, or this support formed, right, as long as price is above that support, it's support. When we break down, okay, now it turns into resistance. If price is below that, right, it's going to stay as resistance. Exact same principle being applied here. If buyers pushed us through this level, right, as long as they're defending this level, that's my new invalidation, right? So the trade setup kind of looks like this, right? Long from here, looking for at least a 25 or 35% gain, or 100% gain would be target 2, right? And I'd be wrong if price all of a sudden starts to trade or close back down below this current level, right? So all of a sudden you get a really nice looking trade setup that looks like this. I'm expecting price to move higher, at least to that target. If it moves down here, I have to admit that I'm wrong, not wanting to take a further loss, and just move right back into Bitcoin, right? The outcomes that, if that were to happen, I think one of the things that could drive that is, let's say Bitcoin just starts doing incredibly well. Sometimes that does force altcoins down. I guess you could say that this could also be a fake breakout and price could move back down. So I at least have to consider that. I don't want to be stopped out, but I have to consider it, and that's how I prepare for that trade. Now, the more interesting part of this past the charts, because the chart is just one part of the trade. The more interesting part is when I tweeted this out, just to get a little more background, a couple investors actually retweeted it and gave their thoughts as well. And these aren't just random people on the internet. These are some of the sharpest investors that I follow. One of them posted this, and Avi said this: the halving in November this year meaningfully reduces supply on market. ZEC is one of the most inflationary coins in the market, and so in my opinion, the argument for the halving leading to a more bullish ZEC is stronger than the argument for the Bitcoin halving leading to a bullish Bitcoin. You guys know the argument for the bullish Bitcoin halving, right? Less supply of Bitcoin hitting the market, the same amount of demand or more demand means the price should go up, right? What is the value of that scarcity? It's one of the biggest selling points for Bitcoin. Everyone knows Bitcoin's inflation. Everyone knows Bitcoin's halving. A lot of other coins that are proof of work also have halvings as well. They have their own supply schedules, a little bit different than Bitcoin's, but they have their own, right? So Zcash has a halving, which is coming up in November. And since it has one of the highest kind of inflations, I think inflation is close to like 20% each year, that halving is proportionally much larger and could have a much larger impact on ZEC's price each year, on why it's been selling off so much in the past, and why that could change going forward. So that's just the first thing that got mentioned. The other tweet that I thought was pretty interesting came from Ryan Selkis. If you guys aren't following Ryan, he runs Masari. It's one of the best sites if you do want to be analyzing coins. And he's looking at Zcash as a momentum trade, and it should take out useless proof of work alts like Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash. I'm of the opinion that Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash in the long term should probably both reverse zero. I also don't know where Zcash ends up long term, but I like to trade these things short term anyway, so I'm not too concerned about that. The chart, I think, does look great. The halving is imminent, and then he has a nice little slant against Kyle Smani. I've had in the podcast, I like Kyle, but it looks like some people like to take the piss there. Privacy Moon is booming. So both of those opinions, I think, actually do matter when you consider the charts, right? I like to consider the chart and the fundamental backdrop and the catalyst. And I think the most important catalyst here is the halving. Now for Zcash, who knows if it's going to 2x? Who knows if it reaches that second target that I just laid out? Who knows if it just reaches my first target, right? It might not even reach either. But as I look at the chart, that breakout combined with the halving coming up, this actually does make it one of my favorite majors. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I have hated Zcash ever since I've been in crypto. It's only trended down, but I actually find this trading opportunity one of the most exciting that I'm tracking. It's not going to be a coin that 5x's or 10x's, right? It's a very large coin, so it's going to be a slow mover, but I do think it's an interesting setup, and I think it's maybe worth paying attention to if you are a trader. That's all I got for today's episode. I just want to be sharing some of the charts that I post on Twitter. Like I said, looking at a ton of new content ideas. I think you guys like the trading talks, so I'm going to keep doing them. Drop a comment down below if you want to see more of something, less of something. If you have a coin you want me to cover. I don't cover too many coins because I just don't want to shill too much, but I want to explain my view there, and hopefully that provides some value. Last thing I want to say, if you are digging these videos, hit subscribe because we have a lot coming out. The market's hot. I've been saying that, but since the market's moving, since we have coins moving, I have a lot to cover here. So hit the subscribe and like button, helps me grow the channel. And also, when you're down there in the description, click that link to download the Crypto.com app. They sponsor these daily videos so that I can bring you the market movers, the news, everything that's happening here in the crypto market. And their app is killer. You can buy Bitcoin with some of the cheapest fees, and they have something going on that lets you buy alt at a discount. Download the app, check it out. You need the app to get involved. It's free to get set up. It works on your iPhone and Android. Check them out. That's all I got, guys. I'll see you in the next video.